catch me howling at the moon.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Recovery Unplugged Live. I'm John Spalding from G1NBC Live. Amy Leigh McCorkle is with us. And Del AOF Weston is here. You guys just saw his opening teaser, hot off the presses, that he got to me for their upcoming film, Old King Cull. And we also have Josh Gippin from a Joshua Tree production, right? And Wendy Duke, who was also featured in their film, The Forgotten Dead.
Glad to be here.
So welcome, everyone. Amy, why don't you go ahead and get us started? What's new?
What's new? Well, recently my book, Songbird, was published. It's on pre-order. If anybody wants to buy it, it's on Amazon. It's on pre-order for ebook right now. On February 1st, it releases, and it will be available in ebook and paperback. And if you get a copy to read, I humbly ask for you to leave a review, because on Amazon, everything is driven by those reviews.
Right on. That Old King Cull teaser was pretty cool.
Yes, that was amazing. I am working with, the dancer and the main character, Erin Miracle. She is a strong supporting cast member in the film I will be shooting in the middle of March called You Know My Name.
Yeah, and we just had her on last week.
She plays a former assassin who's now a nun.
And a great interview with her last week.
She's totally hot, too. No, I mean it. I was with her about a month ago, and she had a really bad fever. She's really hot.
Totally. Hope she gets better.
You got to keep it off the sexist, predator to...
Some people have dirty minds. It's weird that they would go
I don't know
there.
anyone would think that way. She's a very nice girl.
She is. And she's very talented.
I'll tell you who's hot, though. That's Annabelle Monroe. Annabelle Monroe. Woo.
So what's the scoop behind that film?
Old King Cull is a new film that stars Annabelle Monroe, Erin Miracle, myself, Lorraine Wu, who you guys may or may not know, the beautiful Sophia Louisa. And we were sitting around because the festival was not going to happen this year the same way it normally would. And I said, so let's make a feature film. So I wrote the script in about 8 days. I really had a tough time of it because it was something I wanted to do in a way that was higher than any of the other, 20 films I've made before. And I wanted something really intense with great dialogue. And I was inspired through a conversation I had with Erin and Annabelle separately. So we wrote the script. We said, it's the middle of COVID. What do we do? And we said, well, we shoot a movie. So people flew in from Florida to shoot it. Someone else flew in. Erin came from Colorado. Annabelle came from LA. Another guy came. So people flew into Vegas, and we shot everything over a 14-day period. We had a phenomenal cast, a phenomenal crew, the most beautiful locations you've ever seen. And it's kind of a sexual thriller about an older man who's fighting the ghost of his dead wife, and a young girl who comes to town to take over a ballet studio, and how they meet, and this furious triangle of 3 people trying to live when we all know they should be dying ensues. It's just a really cool little film, beautiful dancing, a lot of action, and it's got my 70s film twist. So it's a very mature film for language and violence and sexuality, but it tells a story. I'm a fan of the 70s film, man. I'm a grindhouse guy, but not in the low-bred version. I'm talking more of the films that were made that really challenged people because of they're not just the shock value, but films like The Verdict and Last Tango in Paris and a few others. They had this beautiful, iconic imagery and cinematic feeling, but they told hard stories. And that's just what I'm a fan of. So it's coming out. We're about to finish the post this month. Thank you, DA. Our praying minister, DP, editor, light guy, magician. And it was fantastic. So he's doing it all. So we shot it in October. It will be ready for delivery and sale at the end of February. And it's a full 90-minute beautiful feature. I think he just sent us a teaser, but
Yeah.
I've seen the whole thing in the rough, and I've got to tell you, I'm really happy with it. Very happy with it.
Right on. Congrats.
Old King Cull movie, OLE, Old King Cull movie on Facebook, or visit delweston.com and you can see all my stuff there.
Right on.
Well,
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
So I'd like to introduce you to Wendy and Josh, and I'd like for you to tell them what AOF is and what maybe some of what we have in store for this coming summer.
We did not cancel the 2020 season because of COVID. What we did was we combined 2020 and 2021. We will be having the same screenings, nominations, awards, and shows for both seasons because we didn't want people to miss out. We were able to do some screenings this past season with our beautiful film partners, the Galaxy Theaters in Las Vegas at the Boulevard. And what you're going to have is 9 days of huge parties and fun, screenings, big award shows. We've changed our format a little bit, but we do seminars, we do pitch meetings. We're going to be presenting not just an art show this year like we did last year, along with some of our cultural events, but I heard we're producing a play this year, a live event play. Only the second time in our history. We did one a few years back that was really amazing, and people love to be in a live situation in a live event, and that's what we were able to create. So if you go to actiononfilmfest.com, you can see the whole show. And Amy didn't tell you guys, but we happen to produce the AOF MegaFest magazine, and whenever I'm on an episode with the guests for that day, they get a couple of special prizes. So number one, you're going to get a questionnaire tonight from Amy, so we can do a feature story on your movie for the magazine. The issue's coming out in about 2 weeks, so you'll be featured in that. You'll also get some special prizes at AOF when you show up. So that's a gift from AOF to Amy because Amy is my boss.
I love when Dell shows up and gives away
I
gifts.
love Dell.
Like Christmas.
Can I announce that the pit who?
This is your show. Oh, are you
Do whatever
asking
you
Dell?
want.
Okay. Well, there is going to be a manager coming.
Oh yeah, announce it. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. I don't care about that.
Okay.
We already said yes.
Okay, so, and she's my talent manager, but what she does is she specializes in representing people like invisible illnesses and people with disabilities, because she says they are the ones often with the most talent, and often the most time they get lost in the shuffle because they don't have someone speaking for them in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So she'll be coming and taking pitches from directors and screenwriters, not just from my part of the festival, but for everybody at AOF.
Oh my goodness, that's so beautiful.
And so I can't wait. The play is going to be amazing. I am a little worried about Megan because she's gotten agoraphobic and she's disappeared off of Facebook, and I cannot get a hold of her at all.
What do you need her for exactly?
I wanted her to reprise her role as me.
Now, this is the problem I've been having because I was never given the chance to even audition for the role as you. And if I shave listen, I know I could do it. And you guys don't understand that it would be my Jane Fonda performance.
Oh man, you would bring the house down. Not
only could I be the best Amy Leigh McCorkle who could ever be, but Megan, it would be a process of maybe, I don't know, a little kneecap injury on the ice, kind of reminiscent of the Olympics a few years ago. So if she shows up, she's got a problem because Tanya Harding and I have the same blood running through our veins. So I kind of want the role, and if I cannot play the role of Amy in the film, then I definitely want to be the guy who fixes the brakes at the car repair shop.
There's that scene.
You run the full spectrum. Your talent runs the full spectrum.
Yeah,
I'm a chameleon.
Yeah. But everything. Look, I'm going to. I've raised to update since the last time, Movie Guide Awards asked Letters to Daniel to submit, and they are known as the Christian Oscars. And we already had Warner Music Brazil who submitted our end credit song.
That song is so beautiful. Oh my God.
It is.
Wow.
Yeah. They submitted it to the Academy Awards for Best Original Song. I know they got a lot of. There are 70 songs submitted, and the when you're going against Leslie Odom Jr. and a lot of others, I just but when I listened to that song, whenever I got Hollywood Reporter to listen to it, the award circuit guy. I got the awards editor for Variety to listen to it through Twitter, and a former showrunner, and they told me, they all said this is a beautiful song.
It is gorgeous.
That's cool.
Yeah, her mother, that daughter father team is amazing.
I love them.
Wow.
So,
all right.
I think we're ready to run the.
Yeah, we're gonna run the Forgotten Dead trailer in a minute. I wanted to ask you, Amy, because you selected them for the Conquering Disabilities with Film International Film Festival.
Yes.
When did you get the submission? And what was your initial reactions to the submission?
Okay, so I don't remember when I got the submission because I think it was after August. It was after August. It wasn't in November because I didn't see anything in November because I was in the hospital. But I think it was October. And when I watched it, my initial impression was to cry, both because it broke my heart because there were these people who I could have very much been one of those forgotten people buried in a potter's field. It just, it struck me in a very deep and personal way. And I just thought it was amazing that there were these students who were working to give voice to it. And I didn't know about Wendy's involvement. So I was very, now I admire both Josh and Wendy. Rebecca, she's on the spectrum and has her struggles, and my youngest nephew also is on the spectrum. So knowing that there's a place that he could go to and be accepted for who he is and not judged, and he could do something like this, he's very artistic. It gives me hope. That's what, seeing these other students doing it, it gave me a way to see him make a way for himself as he got older.
Absolutely.
Right on.
Wow.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you interview Wendy and Josh with Dell. We're going to show the trailer for The Forgotten Dead, and then we'll be right back.
Do local residents realize how many bodies and secrets are buried beneath their feet? This was once the cemetery attached to the Summit County home, which housed the poor, elderly, and disabled. A local theater troupe of actors with disabilities bring the past into the flesh by reenacting what life would have been like for them back then.
Tonight we have some very special guests, collaborators on the documentary The Forgotten Dead, a heartbreaking and actually hopeful true story. The true story is enraging, but it's of how a marginalized community was discarded and forgotten. But the hopeful part about the documentary is about how a marginalized group of people are giving voice to those people. Director Josh Gippin and his partner on the project, co-founder for Applied Drama and Autism, and program director of the Theater on the Spectrum, Wendy Duke. Both of you, what compelled you to tell this story, and what makes this particular medium of it, the film, special?
For me,
And
it began with reading a newspaper article about Schneider Park. And you can see Schneider Park as my background. It's a very lovely open area that many people in Akron go and they play football, they walk their dogs, they stroll with their babies. And I had no idea that it once was the site of Akron's poorhouse in the late 1800s, early 1900s. The article revealed that there was a potter's field underneath that park and that there were probably still many people buried there. And that made our company very curious as to the history of disability and how different eras treated disability. At the same time as we were doing that research, I will let Josh tell his side of the story because we started from different ends and merged together.
Can you tell me what a potter's field is?
It's a place where poor people were buried without grave markers.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people don't know. That's why I was asking.
Sure.
Yes. So I was brought in the summer of 2020 to work on a script based on a book being written through the University of Akron. And I was supposed to develop that book into a documentary working with students from the university over the course of 2 semesters. And so then I found out that Wendy was simultaneously making this Along the Graveyard Path play that they were producing. And so the two kind of wound up gelling together, and we were able to produce what we did, which was The Forgotten Dead. And, for me, what was really striking was that there was this theater group composed of actors with not just people on the spectrum of autism, but on the spectrum of all different types of disabilities. And that they were exposing themselves to this history, which is so very disturbing. And I want to back up and just and thank Amy for choosing us for the Conquering Disabilities Through Film Festival, because this documentary appeared on our local PBS station, PBS Western Reserve, covering Cleveland and Akron and Canton and Northeast Ohio. But the fact of the matter is that these types of institutions, the Schneider Park, the cemetery at Schneider Park was part of the Summit County Infirmary. And there were people with disabilities who were residents at that infirmary who later were buried there in that field. And the same types of things, and I'm not going to say what went on there because that would be a spoiler, but some very disturbing things. And that was happening all over the country at that time. So it's not a local story. It's not just a story about a park in Akron, Ohio, because you could go to many, many different counties all over the country and find very similar stories. But working with Wendy, really, I was amazed that these folks with disabilities were able to take in, like you said, Amy, we're able to look back and say, God, this could have been me, that could have been me, and to process that. And what's so beautiful about the work that Wendy is doing at Theater on the Spectrum is that she's teaching people with disabilities to express themselves, to have a voice, and then to be able to advocate for themselves. So I hope that Wendy can talk a little bit more about that, because for me, that was really phenomenal.
Can I ask a question? Ask a question?
Sure.
Is there any chance that PBS will be showing it on a wider scale than just the regional area that it was in, so everyone can see it?
Yes, I mean, it is available through PBS Western Reserve over the course of the next 2 years. Well, I should say 2 years from the time it premiered in September. It is available online, free of charge, through the PBS Western Reserve website.
Good. It's an important
But
piece.
is it the version that is censored, or is it the full?
Oh, they had us censor it. Yeah, that's right. No, it's censored.
Really?
It had to meet the PBS guidelines, so they had us remove a couple of more, scenes that were more difficult to watch. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
In fact, Wendy, apart from being the director of Theater on the Spectrum, was also the actor in one of those scenes. So
Now I really want to see it.
I did it because nobody else wanted to do it.
That's why I want to see it. Yummy.
Allow me to take a moment here to say I do sincerely hope the both of you come out to AOF MegaFest and the Conquering Disabilities with Film, because my film script was one of those films that premiered last summer at that, right? And that qualified, it was on a 60-foot screen in a luxury movie theater, and they had the poster, the digital image of it, like 10 feet tall in the lobby. And it rotated, but it was amazing. And when you go to AOF and Conquering Disabilities with Film, it's not just a film festival, it's real positive experience, and it's family. It's like the AOF family.
Well,
like,
it's family again now. In 2019, we were able to root out a bunch of intruders who never should have been there. And it looked like a refugee march out of Kazakhstan, but I got them all out. You know what I mean? So now it goes back to being what it was. It was a tough year, but it's back. It's where we should have always been. No more barbarians.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question. Unless, Del, you have something else you want to ask them?
Yeah, I just wanted to find out, when you're doing a film like this and you're dealing with the deceased, right? What is there, because I'm doing a film right now called Breaking and Entering, and it takes place in a morgue, and it's a real morgue, and it's a script from Michael Hogan, it's an award-winning script, and we were actually brought in to produce the script for him. So we went to an actual morgue, and in the morgue they had a bunch of deceased people. What was it like working in that subject matter and working with the memory and the respect of those people? What was that like?
You know, for me, there was a large contingent in Akron that was fighting to have some type of memorial put up to remember those who were buried there. For me personally, what was much more important was to bring that history to life and to make sure that through the story, people aren't treated the same way in the future, and that we can learn from the past, so that people who are alive among us today will not have to suffer the same kinds of things that went on back then. So for me, that was really the challenge, is that I think it's, when you're dealing with historical, I mean, I'm already, even as I say those words, I'm like getting drowsy, So Wendy and her actors, though, they really, like, when you see it, you just like, because you see them and you say, those, I mean, like, these are people that are alive today,
right?
But that could have been those people, and you think, oh my God, it's tragic. It's tragic.
For us, one of our goals is to represent. So often when you look at professional television and films, the people playing parts with disabilities are not disabled. They're great actors who are lining up to get their Oscar because they can show disability. We want to represent who we are, and we did it with a great deal of pride and work, research. One of the things that really helped us deal with the fact of death and what happened to these people is that we met a man by the name of Jeffrey Moyer, who is a civil disability rights activist, musician. He wrote a song about the ADA and got to sing it in front of the Senate on the day that they signed the ADA bill. He wrote wonderful music about disability, and one of the songs that he wrote for us is called "The Graveyard is Telling Its Tale." And it is just the most haunting song about how the stories are in the bones. So we treat those dead bodies and the images thereof with great respect, and they inform us as we tell our story. We're using Jeff's music in our production. Could I talk a little bit about our production? Because
no, you may not.
Listen, I've got questions geared towards the production, because I want people to know about your play and about the film and about, so I'm gonna get to it. 'Cause I'm only on question 2.
Okay.
Okay. So Wendy, you are my hero.
Oh,
As I said, my cousin and fellow AOFer Rebecca is on the spectrum, and my nephew Liam, he's only 7, is also. And what I see you doing is what I do with this show, is marrying the arts with advocacy, and that's my passion. And knowing why don't you tell us about what it is the play about, so tongue tied. Why don't you tell us about the play in full, and has COVID affected your plans for it?
oh boy. That is a story. Yes. We were set to premiere our play in April of 2020. And March happened and we were all shut down. We were going to perform it at the University of Akron as a test run, go back into the studio, refine it, and then premiere it to the world in August of 2020. So when COVID hit, we kept rehearsing on Saturdays. We found Zoom right away. But it became apparent that, everyone was saying, theaters are open up in the summer. Well, theaters will open up in the fall. Well, maybe they'll open up in 2021. And we were dealing with a group of people, many of which have underlying conditions, making COVID a dire threat to them. We had some people who couldn't join us on Zoom for various reasons. And it was a deep struggle to keep the company together and figure out what to do. What we finally decided to do was turn it into an audio play. So we have been recording it in Zoom. The cast all know their lines. It's amazing. And we are adding still images that will be displayed of the history of disability as we go through an audio version. It'll be like a serial. It will be released once a week, starting very soon, I hope. And you will be following basically a timeline of disability from Neanderthal era to the present and our hopes for the future.
Wow.
I think doesn't that sound like something for Kev Stew's festival?
Yeah, man, for the new cinema film festival. Yeah.
Yeah, that's looking at, and also this documentary.
For Annabelle, yeah, for sure. We have another. See, AOF is a family of around 17 different festivals and events that coalesce into one event in one place. So you have multiple award shows for multiple festivals, and also multiple subject matter emphasis with each festival. So what occurs is, you don't have to go to 10 different festivals to be recognized. You come to us, you may be recognized by up to 10 or 12 festivals at the same outing. And it's all different festival directors, all different points of view, all different judging systems. Everyone is different, but we all came together as one family, and that's why it's called the MegaFest.
That is so cool.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're already there, yeah.
Josh, when we spoke on the phone, you made a point to include Wendy in this interview. It
Yes.
speaks highly of your working relationship. Who reached out to who, and what was it like? What was it like working together on this?
Well, initially I was hired by the University of Akron, and at the same time, and I should mention, Dr. Carolyn Behrman was the one who hired me
It's
from
the one.
Yes, Dr. Carolyn Behrman from the anthropology department at the University of Akron is the executive producer on the project. And she's the one that sat me down and said, we've got this book that we're writing. Here's all these chapters all about this park. There's a history chapter, there's an archaeology chapter, and a chapter on legal issues and ethics. So we'd like you to adapt that. Oh, and by the way, there's also this theater group that's making a play on the same, and it overlaps on this park. So Carolyn Behrman was the one that made the introduction. And from that point on, it was just, God, it was such a wild ride. And COVID disrupted our work at the university as well. I mean, we were planning on filming their April production. at the university. We had all these different, camera operators that were going to film it from all different angles, and we had like, all these audio, and it was going to be beautiful. It was going to be beautiful.
I'm gonna
We were going
cry.
to get the whole thing on stage with all the lights and sound, and then it all got canceled. So, so what we wound up doing was just using rehearsal footage to finish the film. And, I think it's still, seeing it from behind the scenes, I think brings a different layer to, it humanizes it a little bit more than seeing a polished onstage version. But, it was very challenging, and my students had to work remotely as well at the end of the semester from March on. Everybody was working from home. And that's tough when you're making a film with professionals. When you're working with students, that adds other layers of difficulty. But working with Wendy and working with the actors, I got to tell you, I fell in love with them. From the moment I walked into their rehearsal space, it was just like, I felt like the Grinch, where his heart just expands.
Aww.
I mean, it just, those personalities that the folk, I mean, they just grab you, they grab a hold of you. They're like so warm and embracing, and they just are so alive and full of life. And it was just a total joy working with them. I mean, I was just like, they're the kind of people I just want to hang out with. Like if I could just be like in my downtime, just like go hang out and go bowling or something with them.
Josh, I remember vividly your students coming into our studio to do some video work. And they would sit there transfixed at rehearsal and would whisper to me as they left, my gosh, I couldn't believe how good they are, how talented they are. Yeah. And that's really the message I want the world to have, that these people are talented. They have stories to tell, and why not listen to them?
That's exactly what Conquering Disabilities with Film International Film Festival was created for. I walked into the MegaFest last year at the dinner at one of the dinner with Dells, and he explained what the festival was. He says it was called the Founders Award, and I got this gorgeous certificate that I need to get framed because it's like 18 by 24 and it's graphic design. And but what I was amazed by was when he said it's a film festival run by you for people like you. And it always frustrates me when people think just because you have a disability, that's all you are. And this film speaks directly to that message. So I want to thank you for submitting your film. Do you want to ask a question, Del?
No, I just thought that was a beautiful statement by you.
Oh,
and I'll be using it tomorrow in my speech to the National Dog Owners Association.
All right.
Okay. Okay.
I do want to bring something up, though.
No.
Which is very interesting.
Oh.
Are there other places like the story you told in Ohio around the country? And are there any plans to explore those places with this perfect vehicle you've created?
Well, those places do exist, for sure.
There's actually a website of Potter's Fields that someone has compiled, and it covers the whole United States.
Wow.
Whoever is doing it is trying to gather as many names as possible. So some of the data is completely missing, some is partial, some is pretty complete.
One of the things I can't handle is when people say I can't. They say I can't do it. And I thought I wasn't going to be able to do a movie for a competition, but God, the universe, I choose to say God made a way, and I get to work with some fabulously talented actors. And when I was making Letters to Daniel, which was about my journey with bipolar disorder and how Missy stood by me through that, I didn't understand why all these people were like, because it was like low budget and crazy schedule, and people would say, and I heard like people, three people with power told me I was never going to get it made. And I said, that was just fuel. That was just watch me. And only one person other than Missy said, you direct it. And that was the man who is on this call with us. He said, direct. He didn't even like, he just put one word on my post. He put direct. And I had, that's all it took. Cause that's what I wanted. So I believe anybody can accomplish anything.
You sure it said direct?
Yes.
I thought I wrote collect and I was calling you collect. You didn't. That might have been a mistake. Like when my second ex-wife said I do. I said, who are you? And the guy thought I said I do. It was misery. It was misery for like a year. I mean, the first 20 minutes was great, but after that, oh my God. Horrible.
Okay. So Josh, what is your mission as a filmmaker, and how does that impact the projects you choose to take on?
Wow. Well, over the years, I've taken on so many different types of projects. And I hope that in one way or the other, that those projects have helped move the needle forward on different social issues, depending on what it is. Many years ago, I did one called God as We Understand Him, dealt with Alcoholics Anonymous and other 12-step programs. And Alcoholics Anonymous was founded in Akron, Ohio, which is how I got on that topic. But that dealt with how people who had, maybe they weren't Christian, maybe they were Hindu or Buddhist or atheist or agnostic, and so that film really was meant to help people overcome their hurdles to recovery from various addictions. But then a few years back, I did another film that was all about the idea of chosenness within Judaism, and a concept that I found to be very problematic. That it's got sort of a sense of elitism attached to it. If the Jews are chosen by God to the exclusion of everyone else. And so, it's weird. I can't really say like, what's my mission my films have spanned so many different topics over the years. But, I guess I just want to try to make the world a better place one way or the other. And I usually grab onto topics that are, that speak to my heart, and this project, though, I think is different because it was more like I was more of a hired gun. And that's why I wanted to bring Wendy on the show, because she's the one who is really devoted. Her mission is really, working with people with disabilities and helping them advocate for themselves through the arts, through theater. Whereas I just came on and helped to tell the story. So.
But what you did, Josh, was so powerful. You opened your heart and mind to inclusiveness. And you were the one who said, let's use your actors to reenact some of these scenes. And that was so thrilling. We got the costumes together. You found the locations. We would get our actors into costume and send them out on location, put them in our van, and you would be there and you would film them. And they were so thrilled by that. It was just a trip. You went to a farm that could pass for a farm from last century. You went to an old mansion and did some scenes there. I went on one to the woods where we had a grave digging scene, and then we did the poor starving people in cages scenes there. So
I got a funny story. You see the guy behind her on the screen in the wheelchair?
Mm-hmm.
That's JT. And I don't work with people with disabilities normally, and it didn't occur to me, but we went to this old church and we were going to be filming in the basement, and I didn't even think to see if it was accessible. and JT was one of the actors in the scene, and I wound up having to like throw him over my shoulder and carry him down the steps to this basement. It was not a good moment. That was kind of a low point, but he was such a good sport about it. He was just such a good sport, and luckily it all came out okay. But yeah, I really felt like
teaching moment for you.
it was interesting. But it's funny. I really am not like the guy who's the expert on disabilities. I was just kind of there, and so I really relied on Wendy so much for her judgment on what are appropriate questions to ask the actors. I wanted to do some interviews, some kind of behind the scenes interviews with them, to have them reflect on this disturbing history. And Wendy was the wise counsel that I needed.
You used snippets from those interviews in your documentary, but you also had footage of the complete interviews, and we are going to add them to our online version of Along the Graveyard Path, because they're wonderful interviews. They're filmed beautifully, and it will wrap up our serial of Along the Graveyard Path. You'll get to hear from the actors, their experiences, and their hopes for the future.
Okay, so this is to both of you. Do you plan on collaborating on any other projects in the future?
I hope so.
I'm open to it.
Yeah. I mean, COVID kind of threw everything out of whack. And to tell you the truth, I'm currently in San Antonio, Texas. So we decided our kids are learning remotely during the 2020-2021 school year. And so we decided to take our show on the road. So my wife and I and our two kids bought a trailer, and we're traveling around the country.
Wow, that's great.
And filming everything. And my wife is a photographer. So everything fell apart in our hometown. Our businesses both collapsed when COVID hit. And so we got creative. But when we get back to Akron, I look forward to seeing you, Wendy.
I look forward to seeing you. I can't wait for that vaccine, man.
And you are going to get the biggest, most uncomfortable hug when we got those vaccines. I was like, you vaccinated? Bring it in. Bring it in.
When is the film festival?
It is it July 26th through August 1st still?
July 26th through August 2nd in Las Vegas, baby.
Well, I should be vaccinated by then and ready to go. I want to come.
Why not?
Awesome.
We'd love to have you there.
Man, I hope I can make it too. It sounds fantastic.
You'll meet some good people. You'll have a good time. Well, it's funny though. I always think about things being unfair. And then I hear stories like the one you just told about throwing the young man over your shoulder and carrying him down to the basement. Mm-hmm. Because I did that to my second ex-wife and no one laughed. No one thought that was funny. No one.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so now I'm going to pivot and talk about mental health specifically. This is a question for both of you. Have either of your lives been directly or indirectly touched by mental illness outside of this project?
Yes, I deal a lot with autism, but I am of the age that when I was a child, there was no such word and there was no one describing what autism was. But I can look at my family history and I can see that there were some men in my family who may very well have been on the spectrum, but there was no way to diagnose that. My own father was, he took anxiety medication, and that's all we knew. We didn't know what it was for or why. It was very secretive. So from my perspective, it was family mystery, not open, and something to think about much later in life.
Yeah, I've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder for 21 years now. And whenever I was initially diagnosed, the only ones talking about it were Patty Duke and Maurice Bernard, who plays Sonny on General Hospital. Mm-hmm. And he advocates now pretty strongly. He said he said what changed he had a professional in the industry say, "Don't tell anybody you had this." But then in an interview he gave, he explained his illness. He just decided to do it, and he got fan mail, and he from his and the young man said, "My brother committed suicide, and this you sharing your story helped bring me some peace where that was concerned." And he said, "If I can do that," he goes, "then I need to be doing that." So be sharing his story, and so I can definitely see. So Josh, has your life been touched by mental illness in any way, either as a caregiver or uh
I've had different people in my family who've had
mhm,
mental illnesses. I have a cousin with schizophrenia. Um, the one that probably is left a deep wound for me was my stepfather, who committed suicide when I was 18 years old. So it's been many, many years now, but I think there's a lot of stuff that didn't get processed. I think things are better now in the way that we have therapy. A lot of the counseling that's available now wasn't available back in, I guess, was 1994 when it happened. And with him, I would say that it was a combination of drug addiction, and alcohol. Uh, he was a crack user and an alcoholic, but there were definitely, I would say that there were some underlying mental issues that were causing the pain that he was uh, making him feel like he needed to use. So, so yes, absolutely. And even right up to the present, right now, I have people close to me in my family um, who have been diagnosed with um, different types of mental disabilities. It affects me and my wife, our whole family, it affects us.
yeah,
So,
yeah, I like to
You never
say,
asked me that.
I know I didn't. You told me, do you remember when you interviewed me for your show?
Yeah.
Um, you said, you asked me how much of my day was affected by it. And I would have
Yeah.
told you, like at that time, it was affecting about 50%.
Hmm.
But it really, it's like a full, so I heard it described as a full-time job. And if you have it, even if the people around you in your household or your family don't have the illness specifically, they have it because you have it, because they've got to learn how to navigate and help you without losing themselves in the process. So caregivers, I give it up to caregivers. They have the hardest job in the world. um do you want me to ask you that question?
No, I just wanted you never asked me because it's something I never really went into. But my first wife, um, after we were married, went into some horrible rages, and it became crying drags, depression, violent outbreaks, and no one knew what it was, and we knew she was suffering from something that was silent and invisible, until one day she had a horrible attack, and I ended up calling the paramedics. And when they got there, a doctor showed up. They asked her what was wrong, and they said, "Can you define what's wrong? Can you describe it to us?" And her illness, she began to describe it, and she said it's about 6'3" with a bald head and a goatee and glasses. And as soon as I left, she got better. So I don't know. Maybe I'm the cure for something. I don't know.
yeah, and speaking of caregivers, my wife's brother has a son with autism, and he his his ex-wife is not involved. She's not she doesn't take care of their son. And Brian was kind of left to care for this boy on his own. And he found this incredible woman, Amanda, and they just got married over the summer. It was a very small wedding because of COVID, but they got married, and he is so lucky to have this woman because she actually works in the Canton Public Schools with people with disabilities. That's her profession. And she's just an absolute godsend. I mean, not only did he get a wife who's willing to embrace this son with autism, but she's actually, that's what she does. And it's just, so props to her. Speaking of like props to the caregivers. Yeah.
On a serious note, I did want to bring something up I saw this weekend on Facebook, and that's, we have a friend named Sophia Louisa, and I saw someone attack her. Her daughter's on the spectrum, and someone had come to a site we launched called Modern Army of God. And basically what it is, it's a prayer site where you can go and leave a prayer, you can go and listen to a prayer, whatever you need for support. It's called Modern Army of God. So this woman came in and attacked our site, and I took offense, but again, it's about a prayer site, so I can't be offended very much. And I said, but she's really vicious against us. I mean, horribly vicious. And so Sophia Louisa just said, I don't understand why you're being so vicious. It's just love. We're just praying. So I couldn't figure it out, but I knew something was wrong. So about maybe a day later from that, I saw Sophia make a post, and it said, this woman just said, a non-parent just said that my daughter was suffering because I'm her mother. Now, her daughter's on the spectrum. She's about 20 years old. And Sophia is the most amazing mom, amazing friend, wonderful woman. But it just shocked me that someone publicly could come out and claim someone was a horrible mother to the daughter of a child on the spectrum. And it just shows me the cruelty of the world. I mean, because it is really a cruel master. And we tolerate that stuff. So when I come on here and I make jokes and I'm fooling around, it's only to let people know, hey, it's not all doom and gloom. And that's part of what Amy's festival is about. It's not all doom and gloom. Come and meet these people, see what's going on, spend 5 minutes talking to them. It's not difficult. And I think that everyone mixes in beautifully with the rest of the festival because everyone is dealing with something. So I just want to make a shout out to Sophia Louisa and let her know that we love her to death. And she is a fantastic mom of a beautiful child who I'm now collaborating with on a new short film that she actually did a spoken word deal for. So I feel horrible for caregivers who and people who are left with nothing at the end of the day, and then they have some cruel son of a gun pop by and do a drive-by on social media. I just really think it's a classless and ridiculous thing because life is tough enough. I don't need people going by making it tougher for people who are suffering. I just think we need to be a little more careful with people. You want to be cruel, but not like that. It's not necessary. It's just not.
Okay, so how would you say the public has responded to this project, or I don't understand. I think I left something out. I'm going to skip that question.
Just say it real fast. It'll be okay.
Okay, how would you say the public has responded to this as opposed to your families, your project?
Wow, that's a good question.
Josh, you want to go first?
Oh, you mean us? Our project? Yeah. My family, well, I don't know. Sometimes they watch my movies and sometimes they don't. But the public, especially in Akron, I mean, we've gotten a great response from it. Fabulous response. Yeah, a lot of love. Have you gotten much like input from the public, Wendy?
Yes, people, I think number one is they're amazed that Schneider Park exists, that what is hidden has been revealed. And then they are so impressed with the actors and their ability to take on these roles that could be very painful and emotional. But since we spent a lot of time researching the history of disability, we did find pockets of positivity in the past. And the very first thing that we discovered was that there was a Neanderthal burial from 45,000 years ago of a obviously disabled person who was in his 40s, who had such severe disabilities that his tribe must have taken care of him in order for him to live so long. And then we began looking for other evidence in burial sites, and we found around the world that there were bodies uncovered that were disabled and obviously taken care of by their people. So, along with the cruelty that we uncovered, we also uncovered kindness. And it is, our wish that we all remember the kindness in our genetic code and practice it.
Did you meet any resistance in making the film?
I think that the making the film, I've never made one like this before, because I've never worked with university students before. And so you have the usual barriers and challenges that go along with university bureaucracy and, just working with students, but not like overt, like we're going to try to stop you from doing this or anything like that. I think
Good.
Across the board, it was like, yeah, this is a story that should be told.
Good.
Okay. When working with your students, this question is to Wendy. When working with your students, do they ever struggle? And if so, how do you respond as a caregiver in that situation?
Well, everybody has different abilities. So when there is an obvious challenge, we use that to inspire creativity. Like, for example, if an actor cannot read and they can't read the script, we try to find a way that they can learn the script. Sometimes it's through repetition. Sometimes it's by recording lines on their iPad that they can take home and listen to over and over again. Finding a gentleman who has a hard time orienting himself in space, making an entrance and going to the right spot might be difficult. So we would give him a partner who would come on with him, gently guiding him by the elbow and getting him to the appropriate place. So those were the kinds of things that came out of rehearsal. We never found anything that stopped us totally from doing anything.
Good.
John, when on set, if someone breaks down or if you've had someone break down, how do you address that? Like if they have a panic attack or if they have some other sort of issue that or they get overwhelmed, how do you address it? How do you take care of that?
On set, when working with people with disabilities?
Yes.
Well, there was another guy who was working at the theater group named Ruben Ryan, and he oftentimes was on set. And so he works on a daily basis with them, and they have a very close relationship. And so he is more used to dealing with those kinds of outbreaks or, emotional things that might happen on the set. And so, fortunately, I was able to call on him to help. And most times I didn't even need to go that far. He would just snap into action and help out.
Our biggest go-to is breathing. If someone is getting anxious, we coach them to take a breath so that they're calming their heart rate down, they're bringing oxygen into the brain, and that really helps bring them back to reality.
I will say I've never had it on set, but when I myself went to my first AOF, I had a complete meltdown, and they just took such good care of me. I was freaking out that my movie that I traveled, I'm in Kentucky. It was in Monrovia that year. I was freaking out that my movie that I had traveled to see screen and was nominated wasn't going to screen. And I was alone, and it just like you go into the spiral in your head. And I just started crying. And I think her name was Sue.
Sue.
Yeah. She came to me and she says, it's your movie's going to screen. You don't panic unless I panic. You see me panicking, I'm not paying.
What did we have a problem with the file or something? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
We got it worked out. We had to just do it. All we did was we converted the file, but we didn't know it didn't work until right before the screening because for some reason one computer wouldn't read it, but the others had. So it was just one of those weird things.
Yeah.
And when you mix that with the theater projector, sometimes it won't play.
Yeah.
So we usually go in and we ask for two different ways to play it, either a file that we can, write ourselves or compress ourselves, and then a DVD or a DCP or something. But we only had one thing. And so we got it done. We worked it out. We got it done.
And then,
I think one year we converted 50 files for people at the show. I'll never do that again, ever. I learned my lesson. I'll never do that again, ever. Unless it's for Amy.
I had another panic attack at the 2018 AOF, and it was Teresa, Dell's wife. She just comforted me, and I stopped crying. And when I got up to read my poem during the writers' gathering / poetry slam, my hand was shaking so bad. She put her hand under, she stood behind me and put her hand under mine, and I was able to read my poem. And she goes, "You don't have to do this." And it wasn't about winning at that point. It was about reading the poem just to prove that I could do it. But she got me a glass of water. I mean, AOF is, I'm going to say, I've been to a lot of festivals, and AOF is the one that has been the warmest and the most welcoming. I swear, I hope you all come out there.
She did the same thing for me on our wedding day. Don't think you're that special. She told me it would be okay. She got me some water. She said, "You don't have to do it if you don't want to."
Okay, so this question goes to Josh. How do you think the industry handles its mentally ill community?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea. I have no idea how to answer that question. I am such a small independent producer in Akron, Ohio, that just like the industry, I feel like I am just so out of the loop.
I can comment on that.
Okay.
Over this pandemic, I've been at home watching a lot of things on TV, right? And this is not mental illness, but disability. I noticed 3 different actors who only had one hand in productions in England, and they were playing major parts. I have never seen that in the United States. I have never seen anything like that in the United States. And it was just totally not commented, didn't affect their role. They weren't playing a disabled character. One was Shakespeare, one was a British pantomime, and one was a contestant on the Great British Baking Show. Mm. And it was just perfectly accepted. And I would like that to happen in the United States.
I got a script last year from Drew Henriksen called Tripod Detectives. And
I got that.
He wrote it for his buddies. He said, "Amy, both of these people are amputees, right? They only have one leg, but both of them could kick my butt in a fight." And the premise of the teleplay, it was for a television series, is they are the security guards at an Indian casino. And the opening shot, the opening pages, is this big chase scene through the casino where they beat the crap out of the guys trying to steal something. And I was like, this is just great. This is perfect for my festival. I was like, this is awesome. So, but I hope that gets made, because I think that's
a good script.
It's a terrific script.
It's a good script, yeah.
I had them him and Harold tied for Harold's telepilot, The Long Goodbye. I had them tie for first place, because I was like, oh, I can't. They're just both so good. So what about the way universities are handling the current, this question is to Wendy, the current mental health crisis and the wave of students who are in desperate need of help?
Well, I don't teach at the university, but I do know people who are attending, and I think if you want it, you can find it. The problem is those who don't want to reveal or be open about it. And when you're not in a classroom and you're not seeing people on a day-to-day basis except in a little Zoom box, I think that becomes harder to recognize and get help for people. What do you think, Josh?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends from school district to school district very, very much. At the university level, it also just depends very much on the university. I think our school district in Akron has done a great job. We just are lucky. We're kind of like the smallest big city or the biggest small town. We're just a good size to be able to handle a lot of problems, that we have enough resources, but we don't have as many of the, we're not overwhelmed by a lot of the things that the bigger cities are. So, but I can't speak for other school districts. So.
Okay. And finally, let's have a little fun. Each of you, if your lives were a movie, what would the title be?
Oh my goodness. Well, right now we're on the road, as I said, and we have kind of like a title for our travels, and it's on the side of our trailer. By the way, I'm in a trailer right now, and on the front and on the back of the trailer it says "Where the Winds Take You," because my wife's name is Shane Wynn. Her last name is Wynn. So our movie would be called "Where the Winds Take You."
Okay. And what about you, Wendy?
Well, I'll go with a Kink song title. No More Looking Back. I just, want to move beyond the pandemic, look forward, do more theater, be back in a theater space with those lights shining down and a live, breathing, sweating audience out there.
Yeah. I'm going to borrow a line from Lorraine. Love everyone.
Oh.
Love everyone.
Good one.
So if you could cast anyone to play you in those movies, who would it be?
I got to go with George Clooney. I know that's sort of the obvious, but I told my kids we were watching Oh Brother, Where Art Thou the other night. And I said, look at George Clooney. Doesn't he look, he looks like me, doesn't he?
Well, no matter where you come down on his politics, Missy calls him her Hollywood husband, because since she was a child, whenever she would be in danger with a bad experience, or she was sad, or she was depressed, his shows would come on like immediately, like they would be on TV. So she said he was her guardian angel. And I wrote him a letter on her behalf once, and he sent a couple of script pages from ER, not E/R, but the hit series. And he said, important to have good friends. And he gave us a scene about friendship. And he said, good luck in your marathon, because she was running a half marathon and I was running a marathon at that time.
Wow.
So I was grateful for it, and it really lifted Missy's spirits when she got it, because I didn't expect to get anything back, really. So I was like happy for her to have that. That's like her in case of fire grab item. Okay, so who would play you, Wendy?
Oh, well, I'm going to go with an actress who can get the depth of passion that I feel, and conviction and say Kathleen Turner.
Oh,
Good
cool.
one.
Each of you, what projects other than collaborations do you have cooking for the future?
Oh
Yeah.
man.
We are doing a one-act play festival. And we already sent out last summer invitation to submit one-act plays from playwrights with disabilities. And we got 8 scripts. And we are just lining up the directors to direct them. It's going to be online. It'll be end of spring through the summer producing these plays online. And they are such exciting scripts. Some of them deal with disabilities, others do not. There was no criteria. It was just, we want to promote playwrights who have disabilities and present their work. What it's turned into is a collaboration around the United States from other theater companies who work with disabled actors. So we're super excited about this.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, and I think I mentioned, we're doing a lot of filming right now about this road trip that we're on across the country. And but after this, I would love to help do kind of like what Wendy's doing, is to help give other people a voice, so I really like being behind the scenes and helping to produce something, but letting other people write and direct and let their stories be told in the way that they want to tell it, and I can just kind of help that happen.
Excuse me. Conquering Disabilities with Film, as we said, happens this July 26th through August 2nd as a part of the AOF MegaFest. Do either of you plan to attend?
I've always wanted to go to Vegas.
You should come.
I have a former student who's a singer out there, and this film festival sounds fantastic. So as long as I'm vaccinated, I'll be there.
Okay. What about you, Josh?
Well, we're on a 9-month road trip right now. We left in September. We're going to be coming back home in June. So, to be honest, the prospect of leaving town again, I don't know. I think we're going to want to stay put for a little while, actually.
I hope it's better when you get home. I really do. I really
Maybe
hope it's better.
Del, will any of the festival be virtual for people who cannot make it there?
We fight that, and I'll tell you why. I'm a fan of watching movies in theaters. I really am, and I've been getting a lot of people saying that they had online festival shows, and they didn't like what they did. It wasn't the people who were watching who didn't like it. It was the people who were showcasing who didn't like it. And it's very unfortunate, because you want to be with an audience that appreciates the work and loves the work and can see the work. A 60, 80-foot screen is very impressive. And, after all that work, you want to sit in a theater with a nice Coke in your hand and some popcorn and with a friend or two, and you just want to see your work. And I think there's a different experience that we're trying to offer. So we've been fighting doing online streaming. I just don't like it for a festival. I mean, it's fine for watching movies, bless you, sweetheart. But I think that for a live event like that, you got to press the flesh, and and there's nothing like it. I went to the theaters recently, and I got to tell you, I love being in a movie theater. I know people are downing it now, but there's a reason the government gave them $15 billion in a stimulus program. They think they're pretty important too.
Yeah.
They think they're pretty important, so much so that they would give up that much of our tax money. But it's interesting, that even in the Depression, it was the films, the movies that lifted people's spirits and got them moving forward. And I think that's one reason why streaming channels do so well, because people are afraid to go out. So they sit home and they watch the shows, but no one can tell me that a blockbuster film is not better in a theater, or even a small film is not better, because it is.
The smell of popcorn.
Oh,
I'm going to.
Can I gasp from the audience when something happens on screen? You're just all there feeling it together. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wendy, I saw the first time I ever saw one of my movies on a movie screen was a proof of concept documentary I did that cost me $345 to make. And Dell showed it on like this huge, it was at the Krikoria, it was like this big, and it was amazing. I was like, now I can say I've seen my movie on a movie screen.
But you know, it's bigger than that, Amy. It's bigger than that, and here's why. I don't care if you spend $345 or $345 million. After that, a film is, like you say, is a marathon. A film takes everything you have and gives very little back. So to be able to sit in a theater with your friends or people who may have doubted you or people who didn't know how good you were at what you do, and to showcase that work and to be validated by being in the same arena as a $300 or $400 or $500 million film. I mean, you're getting the same quality, the same screen, the same projection, and it means something. You know, it's not a small thing, and I just think that it has meant so much that whole government sponsor country film festivals, you know, like Cannes and Toronto. Those are huge things that have woven their way into the fabric of that community and of that country. There's a reason film is so important, and I just think that we need to honor it. So I have a very difficult time with the online stuff, but you know, that's just me. It doesn't mean anything. I'm a dinosaur anyway, so you know, I'll do what I'm going to do, and they can do what they're going to do. But
well,
let's hope that this summer conditions are better.
Well, there's so many people already calling for the opening of the governments again. You know, you got Ralph Northam, you got Newsom, you got Cuomo. They're all saying open up. So I don't think it's going to be a problem. I mean, the question is going to be, you know, public trust and vaccines and how people feel about risking when they go out. And that's really what it comes down to. But I live in Vegas, and I went to the Magic Mountains yesterday. There's this big formation of 7 giant colorful stones, and my daughter hadn't seen it, so I took her out. It was so packed there. You could barely take a picture by one without seeing 20 people in the picture behind you. But it was funny to watch the people out there. They were just carefree doing their thing. You know, then I came back up in traffic, and I visit the casinos once in a while for meetings and things. They're packed up. You know, I know that around the world and around the country it's different, but you know, I've traveled back from LA to Vegas and other places, and there's something going on that's just not, you know, right across the country, because no one's uniform. You know, it's all different in each place you go. So we're going to find out. But I think that the desire and need to break out after a year in lockdown and to go and take your sweetheart to a movie and have some popcorn, maybe a dinner. I mean, we need that. We desperately need those things just for our own sanity. So I think there's going to be a push to do it. Or you're going to get in an RV with your family and drive around the country. I mean, what an amazing thing to do.
Maybe coming through Vegas.
Give me a call. I'll take you to lunch.
We probably going to Vegas, so.
Yeah, well, come on down. Call me. I'll make sure Amy gets my information to send to you. We'll have some fun.
Sounds good.
And
Absolutely.
last question, at least from me, unless Dell has some. What advice do you have for those striving to make it and are battling mental illness as well, or a disability of some sort?
There are supports, and no one should be ashamed of asking for help or for support, whether it's backstage, on stage, on set. There is someone who can help you get through it and do your best. Shine.
So, Josh, what would you say?
I did a film years and years ago called The Grizzled Wizard about this junk artist, and he had a wonderful quote about people with disabilities. He said, "They aren't disabled, they're differently abled." And I just love that, because what I would tell people with disabilities is that whatever challenges they may have, I mean, they have so much to offer. The world needs their voices and their minds, and it can be extraordinary in other ways. And so, yeah, that's what I would say to those folks.
Okay, well, that's my last question. Dell, do you have anything to add?
I just want to thank you both for being a part of the show today. I had an amazing time learning about you and Potter's Fields and how important the work is that you've done. And I look forward to seeing you at AOF. And I did want to do one plug, if I could, Amy.
Yes.
We launched something. We heard a lot of pain out there. And some people came to me and said, is there something we can create to help people through this? I said, yeah, I don't know. So recently we figured it out. We launched something called modernarmyofgod.com, Modern Army of God. And it's just a place where people can go and pray. And they leave their prayer, and you can go, and when you click that person's prayer, it's funny because now you're sharing that prayer again. And our goal is to fill the planet with prayer, so that we have enough that whenever someone goes to that site, you may have 100, 200, 1,000, 10,000 people pressing those prayer and reinvigorating beauty and kindness and love and compassion, because there's so much cruelty now. We have just become so absolutely determined that we are right, no matter if we're wrong or not. So we have this giant amount of hate. And I just hope that this is one little thing that'll help ease some of that. If we could just listen and maybe just love. That is amazing. And if that works, great. If it doesn't, hey, I gave it a shot, but at least I tried, right? modernarmyofgod.com. No cost, no sign up, no personal information, nothing. None of that. We don't want it. You know, this is just for people to go to and just find peace, nothing else.
So, John, were there any questions or comments from the audience?
Nope, none tonight. But it was a great interview. I think it can just stand alone. I learned so much, and I appreciated hearing the stories. Wendy, I love the work that you're doing in the community, and kind of like the work that you did with Josh to put the film together. It's so awesome. It speaks well to what Amy's doing with the Conquering Disabilities with Film International Film Festival, but also it speaks well to everything that we talk about in this show about advocacy and mental health and addressing people as people, regardless of whether or not they have different skill set, different ability, you know, all sorts of things. So I just appreciate that, and so I'll leave it at that, to be honest, Amy. And we can leave with the trailer. But who's coming up? Do we have someone coming up next week?
I have, you know, it's very funny. I'm currently going through and picking writers and filmmakers from the Conquering Disabilities with Film to do special episodes.
Brilliant.
Okay.
And the reason why I didn't have 2 or 3 is because, you know, this was a duo, and I felt like their project in particular there was a lot to say about it, and I wanted to give them the full time to say what they needed to say, and I wanted to have Del on and introduce.
I don't know why you keep doing that. That's a mistake.
And Wendy and Josh, if you ever want to do a independent screening of the PG or R-rated version of your film, just let me know, and we'll be happy to do that. You know, we can swear on G1NBC. That's no problem.
Thank you
Sounds
so
good.
much.
That's why we have Del on. You know, we never get kicked off. So. All right, everybody. These guys are going to talk on the back end. Here's the Letters to Daniel trailer, and we will see you soon for another Recovery Unplugged Live. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Dear Daniel Craig, life did not always look like this. This marked a moment of triumph, a way of crushing an abysmal past and daring those with a stereotypical view of those with mental illness to challenge me on any front. To many, this was just a documentary. For me and Missy, this was our life.
It's like my skin is coming off. And my thoughts, they're racing so fast. I can't keep up.
I'm suffering too, you know. You're not the only one.
It's like my mind is coming apart and I can't get it to come together.
I think it's more than just that. Amy's been having a really hard time lately. She goes on these crying jags. She explodes without warning. She's so angry and so paranoid these days. She's not the happy Amy that I remember from Kentucky.
She thinks you're manic depressive. I, however, do not. I think this is something you've been obsessing on. I believe that it's all in your head.
Just come here. We're gonna get you some help. I'll be okay. You do have a diagnosis. You have rapid cycling manic depression.
Dear Daniel Craig, bipolar disorder and those that saw it as contagious sought to pull me under, snap me in half, break me down. Even those well-intentioned do-gooders who see therapy and medication as bad and wrong, who see mentally ill individuals as hapless and hopeless, they're wrong. I found hope in your work. A comrade in Missy, my rock when no one else understood. You two are my twin lights when this disease threatened to take me down. And treatment was what got me through. Thank you, Daniel, for your talent and your work. Thank you for everything. Sincerely, Amy McCorkle.